Hi guys and welcome to the channel. My name is Sam Evans and this is the Electric Singularity. It's great to have you here. Now, I've just reported on news of BYD distributing their electric vehicles in Norway. Now that's coming up towards the third and fourth quarter of this year. BYD will also be distributing cars into New Zealand and Australia. And I believe this is just the start of a global expansion of their passenger cars, which makes a heck of a lot of sense when you consider how good those cars are and the fact that they're using their new blade batteries. Also the fact that BYD can undercut a lot of other car makers because they produce their own battery packs and many of the parts that go into their cars. They have far less dependence on other manufacturers than many of the world's biggest automakers do. Now, in new news, NIO is set to launch in Norway in September. So Norway will not only have BYD vehicles, they'll also have NIO. NIO plans to deliver the first ES8s in Norway in September 2021, as the Chinese car maker has now announced. Norway will also be the first overseas market to offer the company's complete charging infrastructure, including battery swapping stations. Now, if you didn't already know this, with a NIO vehicle, you can actually rent the battery rather than buying it. And this means that you'll never have to accept having battery degradation because you're just renting the battery. So obviously this battery degradation can cause depreciation on your vehicle. And in this case, NIO takes that hit. But obviously the rental cost that you pay is probably a little bit more than you would pay for the battery. I think it's around about $150 per month to rent a battery. The advantage of this is that there are swapping stations around China. So if your battery goes flat or if it's decreasing in charge, rather than actually charging it again on your road trip, you could just swap out with a new battery. So obviously NIO are planning to make these battery swapping stations in Norway, which I think is a lot of work for not a lot of need. I don't think Norway is a big enough country to really need you to be able to swap out a battery. China's an enormous country and you could go on a road trip there and you could drive 80 hours and not even get to the other end of the country. But obviously Norway is not that big and you don't need a huge range vehicle. With this vehicle, the ES8 that NIO will be selling in Norway, it already has a good enough range for the market. So I don't really think it's worth them investing the money, time, and effort into putting these battery swapping stations around the country. I don't believe they'll be utilized. In addition to that, if you are one of the first vehicles, reservations will be possible as early as July. Initially, only the ES8 will be offered. Now guys, I'm doing a review on the ES8, so you can see that video as well. I'll put a link in the description. Initially in Norway, only the ES8 will be offered, as Marius Haler, NIO's general manager for Norway, stated during the online presentation of the plans. However, this will be an adapted European version of the large electric SUV. It will be offered with a 100 kilowatt-hour battery, which is supposed to provide a range of 500 kilometers, according to the WLTP cycle, at least in the version with 20-inch rims in eco mode, according to the footnote. Haler did not name the drive power, but the Europe ES8 is said to be able to accelerate to 100 kilometers an hour or 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 4.9 seconds. The vehicle will be sold as a 6 or 7-seater with a maximum load volume of 1,861 litres, but I have no idea what that means because they don't actually say what the boot volume is. The ES8 is also said to be able to tow up to 1.5 tons. Now that's really good. Obviously with many electric vehicles, they don't recommend you use them to tow. So 1.5 tons would be enough for a caravan. So I think that's a really good feature. The European version will also have the Nomi Smart Assistant, and the entire vehicle will run on NIO's own operating system, NIO OS. Thus, the semi-autonomous driving assistant NIO Pilot will also be offered in Norway. Before NIO brings further SUV models to Norway, such as the smaller ES6 or its SUV coupe offshoot EC6, the flagship sedan ET7 is to be sold in Norway in 2022. This will enable the next level of autonomous driving thanks to 33 sensors including LiDAR, according to NIO. I highly doubt this will be actual autonomous driving. It'll probably be semi-assisted autonomous driving, like most manufacturers have now, which is an awesome feature, but I don't see full self-driving coming to the market at all until 2023, maybe Tesla end of 2022. NIO haven't given any details about the charging performance of the European ES8. However, they have announced charging stations should give a hint of this. A 7 kilowatt charger will be offered as a wallbox for the garage at your house, but there was no mention of a 3-phase 11 kilowatt charger for other markets. The public DC stations that NIO is planning to build in Norway will allow charging up to 180 kilowatts. But they didn't say how many of these supercharger-like stations they were going to build. So I imagine if the stations will be 180 kilowatt, more than likely charging for this car will be a maximum of 180 kilowatts. 4 battery exchange stations will be introduced or built in 2021. So they're going to have to act fast if this is going to happen, because there's only 7 months or less than 7 months left in the year. So, information about battery swapping stations. 4 of the stations are set up to be in the Oslo area this year. They've got further stations planned for Bergen, Stavanger, Trondheim, and Kristiansand in 2022. Gotta love the name of those towns. They just have a kind of a nice ring to them. The battery exchange stations are to be based on the recently presented 2nd generation, but are currently still being adapted for the European market, according to Hailer. In a video clip, however, NIO stated that 312 battery swaps will be possible. NIO stated that 312 battery swaps will be possible per day. Exactly the value that was mentioned in April at the launch of the 2nd generation. I don't know what that means, guys. I'm sorry, but that sounds a bit confusing to me. I think they're just saying you can do as many battery swaps as you want. In addition to the infrastructure, NIO's sales concept will also be set up in Norway. In Oslo, a NIO house is being built just a few minutes walk from the Royal Palace, with the opening planned for September. Obviously, NIO are really going all out and investing a lot of money. Now, this NIO house will be the only NIO house outside of China. So this is quite a significant step for NIO. Next year, smaller NIO spaces will open in Bergen, Stavanger, Trondheim, and Kristiansand. Like the NIO house, the service and delivery centre in Oslo is scheduled to open in September. Together with partners, 5 more service locations are to be opened in Norway in 2021, and the network will be expanded in 2022. Customers will not have to drive to the workshop themselves. NIO wants to offer a pick-up and drop-off service, and smaller jobs will be done by mobile service vehicles. So servicing will be pretty easy with a NIO. NIO says a new chapter in electric mobility is beginning in Norway. Today, EV drivers use their cars very much like internal combustion vehicles. I'm convinced that NIO's smart EVs can change that we use our vehicles more intelligently. NIO says that customers will advise the car maker. The Norwegian NIO CEO wanted to comment on their concrete goals. He said, "We have to be modest because our competitors are strong." NIO did not yet name prices for the ES8 or the ET7. Now guys, if you haven't already seen the ES8, it's an SUV similar in size to probably an Audi Q7. The fact that the app is to be launched in June before all other activities has a simple reason. In China, the manufacturer sees the app as central for its community. So obviously, NIO wants to create a community before they start selling the cars. NIO founder William Lee explains in a video clip, the app has over 300,000 active users in China, even though the manufacturer has only delivered a total of just over 100,000 vehicles. Through the app, NIO wants to build a group that starts with smart EVs but goes far beyond that, Lee says. I think that's a really smart marketing tactic. I commend them for that. Create a community and then you can market that to that community. In Norway, the carmaker also wants to establish the NIO Norway User Advisory Board, for which all Norwegians, not just its own customers, should be able to apply. Through the board, the carmaker wants to receive feedback and advice on how the vehicles, but also the services in the NIO houses and spaces can be better adapted to local needs. Now guys, as you can see, NIO is positioning itself as a premium car manufacturer. Sort of in the vein of Tesla, I would say, maybe even trying to appear even more premium than Tesla. But you do pay for it. NIO cars are not cheap. They are priced at a premium level. And so I'm guessing they're going to go after markets where they believe people are willing to pay premium amounts of money for electric cars. There's probably a number of European countries where this would apply. I don't see NIO rushing into countries like Australia or New Zealand very quickly. Obviously, they're targeting Norway because Norway has huge acceptance of EVs. In fact, the majority of sales of cars in Norway are now electric. Guys, on that note, thank you for watching the video. I really appreciate your support. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Have a good day. Bye-bye.